Hi, John.
Hi, Donnie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Real good. Am I the only one so far?
No, I see 5 or 6 here.
Good.
I was hoping that you all could see each other. I think that's important during this time, but I'm not that great with this.
Oh, maybe
Oh,
somebody can tell you which one to do. I know you.
yeah. I need an assistant. Ellis, it's been too long. Ellis Craig
Oh, cool.
from Austin.
Austin.
And I have Mary, I have Jean,
OCO,
Theo,
Toichu.
Most.
Ellis is on Whidbey Island now in Washington State.
Oh, I heard Alaska. So
Yeah.
you're a little closer. That's
Yeah,
great.
he needs.
Can you hear me now?
That's great.
Ellis, she was asking about you.
Let's see. I think he's having a little connectivity problem, which I understand. Where I live, I am out in the woods. Okay.
He does have connection problems where he is some days.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. It's good
Can
to
you
see
hear
you,
me?
Ellis.
You too.
When we get to travel again, we may get to see you in Washington, I hear.
Hope so.
Yeah. Well, I was told it was Alaska, that you moved to Alaska. And I was like, wow, that's, I don't know if we'll get to see you. So
Maybe he can
that's
start a group
wonderful.
up in Alaska.
Yeah. We are everywhere.
That's right. Before we get started, Donnie, could you nudge Wade to send me his little bio?
Yes, I will. I will.
Thank you. Because we're wanting to advertise that.
Okay. I may actually have a copy if you want to use maybe what we did for the conference.
Sure.
And, you can even kind of just, edit it as you need
Okay.
to.
All right. Send that to me, please.
I'll look for that. Yeah. So I'm going to give the presentation, but I'm going to have to add, looks like every time someone comes into the room, I have to admit them. So I might be hopefully I won't be a little too distracted.
And I have another Zoom meeting at 2 o'clock, just so you know.
Okay, I'm going to try to keep this 2 o'clock your time.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3. Okay. I'm going to try to keep this an hour or even under an hour and that includes questions, answers. This is actually a presentation that is maybe giving you all something to do. So this might be just like a homework presentation. Okay, so I think Kevin is here. So Kevin, can you hear me? I have people joining. So I'm a one-woman show today, so I'm going to have to look for questions and admit people and that sort of thing. But we're going to go ahead and get started here in about a minute. I'm excited, though, that we have hired Abraham Bearpaw. You remember his presentation, I think, John, from the conference. And so community, so cultural outreach is doubling in size. There's going to be 2 of us now. Oh, awesome. It's a great background. It's on edge. Distance and place now. I'm not moving enable waiting room. So maybe Kevin, if you can hear me, if there's a way to just allow people to join, that would be great.
Donnie, I just got a note, my call's in 30 minutes, so I'll stay as long as I can.
Sure,
Okay?
sure, absolutely. This is going to be real easy to view later because it's going to maybe give you some things to do with your group later.
Okay.
So yeah, it won't be lengthy, detailed stuff. If you don't watch it, you'll, never get it later kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Donnie Squirrel, and I am the Cultural Outreach Officer for the Cherokee Nation. And I'm going to do a presentation today on Cherokee Culture and the Cultural Iceberg. So I did put this on Facebook, the Cherokee Nation Community Cultural Outreach Facebook page. So we may have people here, Cherokee people here from all over, local, at large, everywhere. And so I like that idea. I like the idea of us getting together in any way we can. So I think it's good to start with open with a prayer. Would anyone like to offer one? Maybe I should because I can be heard for sure. Okay, so we're going to offer with an opening prayer. Unetlanahi, Wado for this day and Wado for this gathering and for our people that we are still here and still able to come together in any way we can. We are grateful for all that you have done for us, for helping us overcome. And we just ask that you continue to bless our people, tribal people everywhere, and all people, all life, all of your creation. Help us to understand that it is all precious and important and all connected. Wado for this day and Wado for all that are gathered here and not with us today. Wado. So can you all see the PowerPoint? Okay, so this is Cherokee Culture and the Cultural Iceberg. So I'm going to explain the iceberg later, but I'm going to start with some definitions of what is culture. Sometimes I just sort of just jump in and do things without explaining some background. Now, a lot of us maybe think and know what culture means, but this is from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. That's my favorite dictionary because you can study word origins too there, what they call etymology. And you can learn a lot by studying word origins, where words come from. And I'm getting off topic a little bit, but what you understand when you study words are that what we call the English language comes from everywhere, all over the world, and that it also includes native words and phrases as well. So, but I'm going to use the Merriam-Webster. And so culture are the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. Also, the characteristic features of everyday existence, such as diversions or a way of life, shared by people in a place or time. And so examples are popular culture, Southern culture. So we think of certain things when we hear Southern culture. The set, and also it is a set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or organization. So I included that because the example is a corporate culture focused on the bottom line. So, organizations, communities, and a lot of what you do with our Cherokee communities is culture too. It's run in a cultural way, probably a mix of corporate culture and a mix of Cherokee culture and other cultures. So, but there are also other definitions of culture: high culture, folk culture. High culture used to be, and maybe it still is culture that is, many times we refer to wealth and, you know, people that have access to the finer things in life. So sometimes when I know when I used to talk about culture, I would just say culture, not Cherokee culture. And people would say, Donnie, you know, they would confuse what I was saying with high culture. You know, we're in some places in survival mode, and, you know, we don't have time for, you know, the opera and things like that. And so I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with learning, you know, enjoying those things as well. So, so that's why I included this slide. So there's all sorts of definitions for culture, and some of them fit what we're doing, what we do in our communities. But what do we Cherokee mean by culture? Well, it is difficult to define or describe. Would anybody, you know, like to take, I mean, just think about it for a second. If I were to ask you, what is Cherokee culture? What would you say? What would your immediate thing be that you think about? But it can be difficult to define or describe. Many times it's just understood. It's understood by the people that live Cherokee culture. And so when it's understood, we don't have presentations like this where, you know, we look at it, we analyze it. It's just understood. Cherokee culture, it exists. It is passed down through observation, and it's ingrained. I really, really believe that. As I have traveled to our communities, local and at large, I believe I have come to understand that Cherokee culture is everywhere. We all have pieces of it. And on the fourth line here, different levels of understanding. We all have different levels of understanding it. And I think for a long time, many people here at the local level believed that you had to be here to understand Cherokee culture, and that the further out you went, maybe the less you knew. And I am telling you, that is not the truth. And so I really want to emphasize that during this presentation, that as I have traveled, I have learned so much from our people, local and at large, where we have all hung on to some kind of information, whether we even know it or not. I remember one time traveling to Portland, and I've used this example in different settings, but my good friend Meryl there, who is a midwife, her great-grandmother, I believe, was a midwife too in Stillwell area here locally. And she said, Donnie, I was told that when babies were born, there was a song that was sung that brought them into the world. And I was really amazed by that, and I had never heard that actually, but it was intriguing. And because not maybe a couple of years before that encounter, that visit, I was at a UKB gathering locally, and one of the former chiefs was giving a talk, and he talked about how when someone passes, there's a song that is sung. And I didn't know that either. And I still don't know the song. But I went, wow, you know, in the at-large community, I learned there was a song the special song that is sung for a baby being born. And here at the local level, I found there's a song that is sung when someone passes. And, you know, that is incredible information. And I don't know for sure what those songs are, but I have a belief and a hope that sometimes, you know, that we will get that information back, that somebody has more detail. And so the more we visit and the more we talk, I think those pieces are going to come back together. I really have a strong faith and belief in that. The last example here is, you know, Cherokee culture. Sometimes we kind of turn it on and turn it off depending on what setting we are in. I put Cora's example here, and I hope Cora Flute doesn't mind me using her example, but she's one of our master apprentice language teachers. She's considered a high level master language, Cherokee language teacher. And she worked here, she still works here for the Cherokee Nation, of course, but she said that for the first 25 years of her working here, she worked in the health department. And as she drove in every day, she would have to change her thinking from Cherokee to English or non-Cherokee, a non-Cherokee way of thinking and speaking and believing. And I thought that was just astounding. And I know she probably wasn't the only one. And, you know, my dad retired after 37 years and he was a speaker. He probably had to do that too. A lot of people probably did. But what she said was astounding to me, that when she came to work for our language program, she said, I don't have to do that anymore. And that lifted me, that lifted everyone. That was powerful. And so one of the things I encourage people to do, simply be Cherokee in every setting you can possibly be in. I know that it's not always, the setting is not always correct. For instance, I have said, you know, if I work at Wall Street, you know, I'm going to have to adapt to their culture, you know, which I have no understanding of at this point, but I wouldn't expect everyone to adapt to Cherokee culture there. But I would certainly, in any situation I could, bring myself to the table, bring the Cherokee culture to the table, because there's some pretty advanced thinking in our culture. As a matter of fact, you know, I mean, we are a people that descend from a system that was matrilineal and to a great degree matriarchal, you know, where women had a lot of power in our community, especially our elder women, because we loved them so dearly, not because they wielded power strongly. We just loved them and they took care of us. But, and so I think it depends on the setting, but if there's any time that you, Cheech, come here. Sorry, I've got my little dogs around me, which you're not supposed to do when you do a presentation, but when you're at home, things change. But they're getting ready to fight over some little bones. Cheech, come here. So anyway, you have to, don't give up yourself any more than you have to. And that's something I've learned, because sometimes the answer needs to be Cherokee. Even when people are not used to it, sometimes they go, oh, wow, well, that's profound. We never thought about doing that, or doing things that way, or thinking about things that way. You know, it doesn't hurt to offer another point of view. Okay, let's see here. Oh, I went too far. So the cultural iceberg is what we're going to use today. And I'm going to show you an image here in just a bit. The cultural iceberg is something I have posted on my Facebook page a couple of times in the past, and I'm real active on Facebook if y'all want to find me there. But I've never had a discussion about it. And it's something that has always intrigued me. I like it in terms of a tool that helps us think about culture, what culture is. It was created by Edward T. Hall, an anthropologist, and it's in his book called Beyond Culture, written in 1976, published in 1976. And what it does, it shows, this image shows what we see and don't see about culture. And he also talks about level of understanding for each of these topics. Do you have a lot of understanding of that topic, or limited? And it doesn't mean you can't learn more. You know, it just sort of kind of gives you a gauge of what you know and maybe want to know more of. And so it's also a great tool for intercultural communication. We're going to use it today to talk about Cherokee culture, but this tool was created to help people understand all other cultures, other cultures other than your own. And we need more of that today. We need more understanding of other cultures, because that lack of understanding of other cultures leads to problems that we can overcome. So here it is. This is the Cultural Iceberg. And I included a link at the bottom. Oh, hey, yay, it worked. We've got one here. And so there is a link that you can print a copy of this out for yourself. And there's also a place where you can print out a blank copy if you want to use it to take notes and just use it as a tool. So the Cultural Iceberg, so what that means is that doesn't mean we Cherokee are headed to an iceberg and disaster. That's not what the Cultural Iceberg is. This is a tool that shows, really, when we think of an iceberg, most of what you see is, most of what is there you can't see. It's below, you know, it's in the depths. And so what we do see, and here are some examples on the top. It says dance, literature, language, celebrations, games, but there is so much more that is there. And so, and you can use this to think about, you know, clothing, you know, all those sorts of things. Okay, here she is. That's my little rescue. And even though she's tiny, I've seen her win like 3 fights with bigger dogs. So she's got my respect. And so, but anyway, at the top, dance, literature, language, celebrations, games, you know, these are things that we see, we participate in, we go to these things, we see other people participating, you see it. And, you know, there are so many other things that we see that can be added here. As a matter of fact, if you just look up the Cultural Iceberg in terms of like images, there are all sorts of examples that we can look at that people have included and created their own. And so it's real interesting to look at those other examples of the Cultural Iceberg to see, you know, just to analyze, because the more you look at, the more you learn with this tool. And so when we look at celebrations, you know, we say Cherokee holiday, you know, we may show up and maybe wear our stomp skirts or ribbon shirts, and, you know, we identify, oh, that looks Cherokee, that looks like a Cherokee style. You know, you hear people speak in Cherokee and you go, oh, you know, when I was young, everybody spoke it. And sadly, it's not a common thing I hear around here anymore. Never thought that would be possible. And even my son, who's been learning language since he was about 3, when he got to be about 8, 9 years old, he heard a couple in a nearby town greet each other and talk to one another in Cherokee. He goes, "Mom, they're talking Cherokee to each other." He was amazed by that. Even though he was learning Cherokee in a school, it's different in a setting of learning in a public school than just hearing it naturally out in the world. And so, but he knew he was hearing Cherokee literature, books, poems. You know, we can go, oh, that's a book on Cherokees, or, you know, even our dances. Some dances, our stomp dance, our ancient stomp dance. You know, it's mixed with other tribes like the Creek and Seminole and Choctaw, Chickasaw, and others, but there are things there that are distinctly Cherokee. But there's so much there. Games, stickball. That's a Cherokee stickball game. You know, we see it, we might play it, we recognize it. So that is above sea level. And it says the emotional level is relatively low. That means that it's just sort of, we participate without really, I think, questioning whether that is Cherokee or not. We just know it. So then we go below sea level and we move into the deep culture. And under deep culture here, it says unspoken rules. And I mentioned that earlier, things are just understood. And so under that, when we think about Cherokee, how do we feel? What are our beliefs about courtesy to others? let's see, it says contextual conversational patterns. There are ways we speak to one another, here at the local level, let me say, and at large. Um, uh, Somebody said one time, somebody entered a room at the Heritage Center and yelled across the room, "OCO," real loud. And this person said, "I've never heard Cherokee yelled before," And so, so there's a way that we speak too, that not just the language, but how you speak it, how you deliver it. And, our facial expressions, we're known many times to not be real expressive people, especially our men, but we actually are very expressive. And you get to know people and they start opening up to you. I will say we are, I think, the funniest people out there. I really do. I think our sense of humor is strong. Nonverbal communication, body language. There are just certain ways of being, the way we move, the way we feel and think. Eye contact is always a biggie. I still have issues with eye contact. I grew up, in the handshakes, I'll throw that in there as well. I didn't know a firm handshake was a thing. I didn't know that was a thing out in the world that showed that you, it showed something about your character. And I didn't know, not making eye contact was kind of would show that maybe you weren't an honest person or something like that. But I will say eye contact, because eye contact, and I'm doing it now naturally, we tend to look away and think before we speak. And so really it's about making sure you have the best thoughts, the best, not being wordy, but making sure you kind of think about what you want to say before you say it. And so I noticed that about, our elders, they don't look you square in the eye and tell you how it is. They tend to look away and think. And when they speak, that's usually whatever they say, that's it. That they're telling you what you need to know. And so, and you rarely come back with more questions and, can you explain more? You just take what you can get many times from the elders, and you allow yourself time to think on it and put it into practice in the world. And then it makes sense, for you. Patterns of handling emotions, notions of modesty here, concept of beauty, courtship practices. I've heard some funny stories lately about, I didn't know, I thought the stomp dance was just this spiritual place to connect with one another and the creator, and that's all it existed for. But I've heard a lot of people say that, depending on who you got in line next to at the stomp dance, that showed that you had an interest in them and things like that. I was like, I had no idea. So that was a kind of a funny thing to learn. So courtship practices were actually, something that was a part of our stomp grounds. Relationships to animals. This one I love, because we live in a world that doesn't consider, we don't consider animals to be feeling, thinking beings. And but in the Cherokee sense, they are very important. They are very much a part of us. We are very much, in many ways, equal. And I know that's not the way of the world, but that is truth. And my understanding of what it means to be Cherokee is to have a good relationship with animals and plants and all living beings. And so I'll use, and I've shared this story before, but we're dealing with a pandemic now. And as all of you well know, but we have a story that said, there were the animals, we hunted deer and game for survival, and the animals offered themselves to us because we did it respectfully, we took care of them, we prayed, and we even mourned if we had to take a life, and we gave thanks. And at some point in our history, we quit doing that. We quit treating them with respect. and the animals became very upset, and they got together and decided they were going to make us sick. They're going to teach us a lesson. They're going to make us sick. And that's kind of what we're seeing now in this pandemic. Well, it is. And then, let's see, make sure I haven't. Okay. But then the plants got together. And they felt sorry for us. And they agreed, yes, the animals were treated badly. We didn't do right by them. But they decided that they were going to offer themselves as medicine to us. And so I think that's the story. That's what was understood. And so we still have a great deal of medicine plant culture. We still go out and gather. I go out and gather something called nokta, which is known as spicewood for colds. And so plants, animals, all living things in their territory, there where they live, is supposed to be honored. Oh, okay. So relationships to animals, notions of leadership. I mentioned earlier how important our elder women are to us because they're beloved, because they're wise, because they're kind, because of their unconditional love. They stick with us no matter what. They correct us in very Cherokee ways, but that is where their power comes from. And so when I think of notions of leadership, I think of them. And, we have different beliefs about leadership, servant leadership. We just had a conference. Our annual conference was about servant leadership, the Cherokee way, how we are to be in service to others. It's less hierarchy and more equality, and people just have roles and responsibilities and to carry out. And so notions of leadership, tempo of work. Oh gosh, we work differently. we look at work differently, and sometimes we live in a world where it's pull yourself up by your bootstraps, work hard kind of thinking. But we had a different way of working in the world too, where there was balance, concepts of food, ideas of child rearing. When I was young, we had the run of the place. We could run in the woods and play, and come home in the evening and eat, or come. You know what I mean? We had there wasn't always. We had a lot of autonomy, but we always knew that there were people around us to care for us if we needed them. And we knew where home was at the end of the day. And so there were different beliefs about bringing up children, a lot of learning, a lot of allowance of learning on your own, learning lessons from experience. Theory of disease, I kind of covered that with the story I just told about the animals and plants. Let's see, nature of friendships, tone of voice, attitudes toward elders. That's huge. That's a very huge Cherokee belief that we revere our elders. We listen to our elders without question. And even if you come across an elder and they tell you something and you go, I don't know about that. We don't even do that, but even if you do, even if you go, I don't know if that fits this situation or whatever, you don't say that. You don't say it. You take their information in, you apply it, and see how that affects your life. And so our attitudes to our elders are to be revered. And I'm not sure that that's always how things are in the rest of the world. My little dog's wanting back. So there's all sorts of things here. Notions of adolescence, patterns of group decision-making. We used to be a group of people that believed in consensus decision-making, which took days and days sometimes. If we believe that oh, hold on just a second. Cheech, no, stop. Okay, I'm sorry, I have my little dogs around me on the home. So, but let's see, patterns of group decision making. That's real important because in our system, you know, we took time to study issues and discuss and try to come up with the best possible outcomes, and everyone had a voice. And something I have found is that at the ceremonial ground, and there are 2 meetings a year, a spring meeting and a fall meeting. And in those meetings, everyone gets to speak from eldest to youngest, and then again, eldest to youngest. And I've been at a meeting where a little 2-year-old came out to speak, because it's done at the ceremonial ground, so near our ceremonial fires. And so she came out and she said, I want to keep learning Cherokee. So everyone got to express themselves. And so we made sure we had, you know, Cherokee classes available. And so, but in that type of meeting, you look back at the past year and you look ahead. Did we accomplish everything this past year that we wanted to accomplish? Are there things that we still need to address? And looking ahead, what do we need to do in the future? So you keep those things in mind as you're meeting, but you would be surprised in those from eldest to youngest, going through that twice, how many issues are addressed and how many you realize other people are thinking the same thing you are. And many times you don't even have to bring up an issue. It's been addressed. And that's nice. That's really nice. And so it's probably not the old system, but it's a system that's probably close to something we used to do in terms of trying to find consensus. Because it's important that we are all able to be happy and live with a decision. And, you know, that's not the way of the world. And so that to me, that's progressive. That is a really progressive way of thinking. And so just know that in terms of being a Cherokee, we had some very progressive ways of being in the world, where I'm not sure the rest of the world, especially here, have caught up yet, but let's hope they do. So preference for competition or cooperation, you know, we in terms of playing traditional sports or, you know, modern day sports, our people are competitive out there. They really are. You know, as Cherokee stickball game, competitive, but we also value cooperation. We also value coming back together and working together again. And that's what the stickball game was. The Cherokee version of the stickball game was played so that we could avoid more harm in our communities, more that we found a way to play this game, and whoever the winner was, that was it. And we moved forward. And then we worked together and we cooperated once again. Concept of self. I'm just there's so much here, and there's so much more than what is here. And I encourage people to look up the Cultural Iceberg and look at what other people are talking about in terms of these concepts of culture. And toward the bottom, I didn't mention this, unconscious rules. So we have moved into unconscious rules. And so we are not aware of these things. We just do them. And so the concept of self, concept of past and future, you know, there are Cherokee ways of looking at all of these situations, at all of this concept of self. Even though it's under unconscious rule, I've really thought about this concept of self in the Cherokee sense is we better ourselves in relation to the community. We want to better ourselves with the mindset of how am I going to be more of a help to my community? What can I do with my life that will make a difference in my community? So you think of self, but you think of others too. You think of community. And so So those are just some items in the cultural iceberg. And so I encourage you to maybe use this and get with your groups and talk about some of these things. What is Cherokee culture? Again, high level of understanding, lower level of understanding, it's all over the place, literally, because there are people here right smack dab in the middle of Tahlequah that may believe that something is Cherokee and it's not, as a piece of art or something like that, or, that they think maybe that is a Cherokee design, and it may not be, and it may be. But then, we may have someone in another part of the country, one of our people that, they understand Cherokee design. So it's all over the place. And you have more information than you think you do. You know more than you think you do. I've had so many people share stories with me in my travels, 8-9 years now, traveling to our at-large communities and later local communities, where people share things with me, amazing things, and they don't even know it's amazing. It's some story that's been passed down and they don't even know it's an incredible story. For instance, I have a friend that lives outside of Tucson, and he was here for the conference a few years ago, and we all went to a restaurant for dinner when we could do that. And so I got everybody situated, and it was just he and I left. And so we took a booth to ourselves because all the tables were full. We had never sat down and talked before. And so we were getting to know one another, and he's telling me family stories. And he told me about a group in his family history that there were Cherokee people in Mexico. And he went on and on, and I was amazed because for a couple of reasons. Our ancient stories tell us that we came from an island in the south, surrounded by giant turtles who took care of us. And isn't that an incredible thing to think about? Because here we are all over the place now, but we are a people, according to our migration stories, that lived in the south. We were island people. We moved up north into the Americas. We lived, according to migration stories, in the northeast, where it was cold, and then eventually moved down into our beloved homeland, North Carolina area, that whole southeastern United States, mountain people. So we've been, tropical, we've been mountains, and now we're in Oklahoma, and now we're all over the place, living in all sorts of different landscapes. Adaptable, we are an adaptable people, and that is for sure. And so he shared with me these stories about how people, because our people, I don't think we're many times given, we don't think that our ancient people traveled as much as they did, and they did. And so he said that there were people down in South in Mexico that were Cherokee. We have stories that say that Sequoia, our beloved Sequoia, who created the Cherokee syllabary, went into Mexico as well, and that he died there, and he's buried there just across the border of Texas. And so he's telling me these stories and just visiting. I don't even think he really understood that what he was sharing with me was incredible, because I was so intrigued, because I'd heard this. I'd heard that, there were people, our people had gone down, some had gone down into Mexico, and that Sequoia, and it's noted that he had gone down into Mexico and had even died there. And so it was an amazing connection. And so I believe that if we really think on things and maybe use this cultural iceberg as a tool, and stories, family stories, really start thinking about those things and bring those things to the table. So if you are in a community group, this would be a great thing to do right now to keep you connected. We have some community organizations that we're working with that are still meeting monthly via Zoom or in some manner, so they're connecting. But this will give you something to talk about and discuss. And so that's why I wanted to share it today, the Cultural Iceberg. And there is, let's see, blank copies. So you can kind of take notes there. And of course, there's not much room for writing here, but it kind of gives you a idea of, when you're looking at what you can see at the very top is just that, what you can see. But the depth of culture is below the sea level. It's harder to see. It's harder to describe. But if we study it, if we ask ourselves questions, start with ourselves and maybe check with our families and our community groups, I think we'll find some really interesting answers. And so in our culture, this is a Cherokee cultural thing, that we many times have to ask for information. I have a friend in North Carolina, and she said that her father, a beloved elder, knew medicine plants, and she said one day he was out gathering plants, and she asked him, who's it for, and he told her, and she said, well, Dad, I've not been feeling well either. How come you didn't get anything for me? He said, well, you didn't ask. And so I think our people believe that unless you ask, there's not an interest and there's not a need, unless you specifically ask. In some situations, of course, there are some among us and look at someone and go, oh, there's a need. I need to go over there and see if they need help. But I think with the elders, in terms of gathering information, sometimes you simply have to ask. They're just there with all this information. And I can even say this about my elders. I'm always amazed when I sit with my dad and he'll share something, or I'll ask him something. The amount of knowledge that is there, I have not even really tapped into it. And, he even had information about, in our history, there were these people called the Ani Kutani that were kind of rulers of our people until we decided we didn't like how they ruled, and then we took them out. But he said, my grandpa had knowledge of that. And to me, that's ancient, but yet he said, my grandpa knew of that time. And so there's information. And I would encourage you to, talk to people in your families and see, ask them about stories and information, and maybe what life was like when they lived here in Oklahoma, or what it was like to move away, because there were different times of migration, some because we chose to migrate and some because we were forced, and so our migration story is old and it's continuing, and we're all still a part of that. And so, but thank goodness because of things like this and being able to meet online, we can stay connected and we can overcome those miles between us. That's the only thing that keeps us separated, is some mileage, and that can be overcome. Cherokees are community-oriented people. And to me, that's a big part of the cultural iceberg. We're community-oriented people. If you're in a community organization, you're there for a reason or reasons. We are just people that are community-minded and less focused on self. And it's the only way we've all been able to survive as a people, is by working together. So I think this is the last slide, and then I'll see if anybody has questions. The reason why I wanted to do this and talk about Cherokee culture and the cultural iceberg is, I posed the question in the beginning, what is Cherokee culture? If somebody asked you, somebody out in the world, what is Cherokee culture? What does it mean to be Cherokee? How do you feel about that? And, and so there's so much more to learn, and I'm here to help teach and share what I have learned because I have learned a lot by visiting people. And when I learn something, I share it. And so learn and teach Cherokee culture, because the more, the merrier, the more, the better. The more of us, because we are spread out in so many areas, we can become experts in our own culture and share that with others, and not just in words, but by example, by deed, and I really think make the world around us a better place. Part of our ceremonies, we dance and sing all night these ancient songs and dances, and the belief is that it's prayer for the world, that you dance around a ceremony, an ancient ceremonial fire given by the Creator, and that when you do this in a good mindset with your community, that you're sending out good prayers, good energy, good messages that go around the world in all the four directions and come back and meet back at that fire. Now, you may not see anything of what you may have changed in the world for the better, but you believe that you have done something, that you have made an effort, that you have tried, that with your beliefs and your good intentions, that you have maybe set something right in the world. And that is what I believe we are capable of doing as Cherokee people, no matter where we are. And so the more we learn about our culture and teach others about our culture, the better. We have existed here for a long time with our own worldview, our own way of looking at the world. And I think people around us need to know that. The larger society needs to know that. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but on Facebook lately, just in the last couple of days, a lot of Native people have been kind of laughing about this situation on one of the news networks reporting on the election. It showed by race who voted, the percentage of votes by race. And so we were lumped in a category of something else. Not even someone else, we're not even someone, we're something. And so I'm sure, it wasn't just Native people, but, Pacific Islanders and, all sorts of diverse people probably went in that category. So Native people, being the funny people we are, have created all sorts of funny things about it on Facebook, because humor, making fun of and making light of a situation, making fun of, helps you feel better before you go into battle, I think, sometimes, because it is kind of ridiculous that we are the first peoples. And yes, we are only 1%, and maybe not even that, of the population, but we are still here, and we still matter, and we still are involved in the processes. So I emailed this network, but with my people, I just laughed with them, And so we are still, we have existed here for a long time with our own worldview. So I think we need to encourage and step up and say, look, don't forget us. We have opinions as well. And so I encourage you also to have conversations. I've already discussed that a bit. Maybe if you could encourage your groups to get together online, and I will be here to help. If you want me to join a meeting or to explain these things again, or, listen in, answer some questions, I'm here. I'm working from home, and my sole purpose as an employee of the Cherokee Nation is to support you, to support our people, and to deliver cultural content. So that I'm here for you. I'm here to serve you. And so y'all use me anytime, to help with your meetings and gatherings. And I'm here, and I'll have my info on the last slide. But I encourage you to have those conversations and schedule those conversations, and just share a family story. Share something you were told, even if you think it's not something. I'm telling you, it probably is. It probably is something. And you'll find out how much you have in common as well when you share these stories. This is a good way to compare and contrast with other cultures. I'm always thinking, every day, really, when you try to live and maintain your Cherokee beliefs, you're constantly thinking about the other cultures, the larger society, and how you fit in. And so that's just the way it is. And so it's a good way that the cultural iceberg is a good way to talk about Cherokee culture and other cultures. We Cherokee are multiracial, multicultural people now. We just are. We've been intermarrying early on, and so that's just the way it is. And it's not a bad thing. So we are comprised of more than one culture. So it's a great way to understand maybe those other cultures too. Here's the Cherokee thinking on this, and here's, I may live near another tribe, and here's their thinking on this issue. And here's the larger society of someone of European descent. This is their belief on this issue. It's an interesting way to look at the world. And so the more we try to understand these other cultures, I think the better off we'll be. I really do. And so it's a good tool for that as well. And so I kind of spoke to this already. You are in positions to reach more people. I am here in Leech, America, and I don't even see neighbors. I don't even see people around me. But the further out we go, the more people we can reach together, and just simply say, this is Cherokee perspective. This is, I want to offer you a Cherokee perspective on this, and so you are in positions to work with organizations and communities and schools and businesses and governments. I get so many requests in October for Indigenous Peoples Day. I get so many requests for information for Native American Awareness Month, and as one person, it's a lot. But the more of us sharing and maybe offering programming in our schools, or we're going to change people's minds about who we are as Native people and give them good content, because it simply has not been there. Only as an adult have I really been studying our history. I'm taking a class now called American Indians Today, and it's incredible what Native people have gone through. It's incredible what we have survived and overcome, and how many even have gone on to even flourish. And so the real story of Native people and Cherokee people is an incredible story. It's an incredible American story. And I think people need to know the truth. So you're in positions to share information, to learn, teach, and share. And this last thing, examples to others. Our ceremonial leaders, Crosland Smith, he is considered the spiritual leader of the Cherokee Nation. He is 93 now, I believe. And I've known him since I was a little girl. He's a medicine man. He's a healer, a spiritual leader. And his brother, Benny, this Smith family, they were the people that, they ensured our ceremonies carried on, and our spiritual life, and that we understood those things. But his brother Benny, and you can Google them and find them on YouTube, even Crosland Smith and Benny Smith, incredibly powerful spiritual teachings there. But what they say is, as elders, we are to be an example to others. And they were very open with what they shared about Cherokee culture and beliefs, even the stuff we're told we're not supposed to share. And I follow their lead, because they were, Benny has passed, and Crosland is still with us. But these are the elders, and they say, share it with the world. Be examples of the good Cherokee life, helping others, be those examples in the world for others. And I'm going to listen to them. There was a time, and I've heard this, but just recently studied it, the actual laws, where tribal people could not practice their ancient spiritual practices, late 1800s, early 1900s. So a lot of what we did spiritually, ceremonially, went underground. And I think it wasn't until 1977 that was overturned, that the Native American Religious Freedom Act came about. And that's not very long ago. But it went underground. You know, our people didn't just stop, but they could be arrested. They could be punished for practicing our ancient spirituality. And so I think because of that time, many of our practices were hidden, and our people remember that even today. So sometimes are afraid to share too much with people. And I try to find a balance. You know, I on one hand I go, well, this information is Cherokee. It belongs to the Cherokee people. It's supposed to be from the Creator to the people. So I'm always thinking that, and you know, could this information fall into the wrong hands and it becomes something that isn't Cherokee, you know? And so there's a balance there as well. And so, but I always lean toward, if you're Cherokee, this information belongs to you. It's yours. And so I certainly try to share everything I learn. So that is really my presentation. Hey, and I made it under an hour. But this is my information, and my email and my phone number. You can call or text, and let's see, in our Facebook page, CNCCO, Cherokee Nation Community and Cultural Outreach, and you can reach us there as well and look for more upcoming programming. I have a calendar I'm going to put out very soon for the next 6 months, because we really don't know when we're going to be able to travel again safely and keep our people safe at our gatherings. So I'm working 6 months out. I will have a calendar out, and hopefully in the next few days it's being finalized, where we're going to do every month a cultural topic, a capacity building topic to help your organization grow, and also a monthly legislative update from our government relations, Kim Teehee, who is our delegate to Congress. And so she has agreed and will be giving us a monthly legislative update. And we will also have a monthly sort of miscellaneous topic. You know, people can suggest a topic